The following is a conversation with Kelvin O. Kelvin has been a consistent honor student since his elementary years. He is an awardee of multiple math awards and joined a variety of sports teams during his school life. Currently, he is taking up Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering at the Siliman University. Good morning, Kelvin. Welcome to the Consortium.
Good morning.
How's online learning for you?
Online learning has been a very new experience. With the evolution of technology, we wouldn't have this kind of learning, this new sort of alternative and solution to continuing classes despite the pandemic.
Yeah, I can even imagine if what if like the pandemic struck us during like the early 2000s, around 2005 and 2007, like it would be really difficult for us to cope up with the circumstances if the pandemic happened earlier where we haven't adapted to the changes. And to add, what have been like your greatest problems during the what has been your greatest problems in facing the pandemic in facing online learning, I mean?
My problems in facing online learning is because I have to travel to the store just to have internet because my home doesn't have really proper internet per se. We don't have Wi-Fi there. I tried going to multiple, let's say, telco companies, but they said they couldn't give us internet because it's far from their posts. So I have to go to the store because it's the only place with Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I have to agree with that also. There's like it's been really difficult per se with in terms of the internet because not everyone is gifted with the lines, the fiber lines to their home networks. Okay,
Yes.
for me like for me the greatest like problem for me is that it's really hard to put this like a boundary towards school and home because all of it it's like inside your place na ba, inside your house. So like instead of like for example if it's in the physical setting there's like a mind shift during going to school because your brain is like solely functioning that yes I am going to school blah blah blah. And also another problem is the boundaries in terms in between classes. I think like for example, if I'm having calculus class in this first subject, then the next subject without break is chemistry. There's not like a physical like transformation. I have to transfer to this classroom, then move to another classroom. Like you feel like originally when once it's physics, you feel it's still physics, but in in this new normal, it's really difficult to transfer like physically because you can't transfer physically, but you can't transfer yourself cognitively.
Yeah, yeah, true. I can truly understand that. I've like my aunt also told me that like if you want your place, you want your room to be just your room. Like if you want to do your schoolwork, do it at another place because it's like more of the atmosphere. The atmosphere of that area is specifically for that. So if you make your room also a workplace, then you're also contaminating that atmosphere of your room. That it's supposed to be a place of relaxation and rest, but when you mix your room or your house with work, then it also contaminates that relaxation. Yeah, I can really understand that. Your shifting of gears wouldn't be really as easy because you're also not transferring the setting or the place physically.
Yeah, so even like Microsoft has like the Microsoft team. I read a recent article by the Microsoft team where what their employees do, they let them go to a meditation before they start they start the meeting so that the employees would like literally transform like literally have somewhat like a travel towards that meeting. if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
talking about difficulties, I think like I really pondered you, like especially in the Mark Manson's series. So like I remember I have the book you read here, the subtle art of not giving a,
I,
because I was reading I the next book, everything is
yeah.
released on that day, where I had to backlog and then backlog while I was reading this. I was reading the second book. I gave you a chance to read the first book, which is the subtle art of
Yeah. Not giving.
so not giving. So the first, what enticed me to like that the book is that I ha- during that time I was really in trouble with trying that much. Where in the first chapter of the book literally says don't try.
Yeah. He says don't try, just do what you want to do and like stuff. So it's like it's really like telling you the title itself is not really as what you can say in terms now as clickbait. It tells you what to do. Give you shouldn't give, but it's clearly on those chapters. It's you shouldn't give on, but it tells you also to give importance on some things, but it tells you there should be a limit, and you should know your limit, and you should accept your limit because I think what he's trying to say, when you accept your limit, that means you can try to break it, but you can also not break it and be content with it. Because if you're just gonna try to break it, even though you know you can't, you're just gonna burn yourself out and break yourself instead.
Yeah. And then the first chapter speaks about Charles Bukosky. I think I think his story is really interesting because people will say that he embodied the American dream, where he really fights for what he wanted and never gave up on his wildest dreams. But
Yeah,
however, for him, if he really spoke to you, even his epitaph and his tombstones, in his tombstone, I mean, set reads, "Don't try," and he even pushes everyone to not try. Do you think this is like a good, a good motto for like the younger generation to not try?
I don't know. I'm not really sure, but not trying itself is more of like a dual sword. A dual sword. It can hurt you, but it can also help you because sometimes it's like that is trying to tell you to take a step back and relax. Because if you're not gonna relax, then you're just gonna burn yourself out. So he says if you not try and make it more, I think he's trying to tell you like if you don't try but make it yourself, do it naturally, then it would feel more easier and it would make yourself not how do you say this, not really stressful because you're doing it naturally. So you're not trying, but it's more like you can say it's like something with Buddhism where you just have to really let go of yourself. But in the end, the bad part is when you don't try, you don't do nothing at all. Then that's just laziness. But let's say if you go back to the book, it says he tells Mark tells you who cares if you're being lazy, and in the end you're just there to please yourself. You don't really need to care about what others think of you because I don't I'm not really sure. It's more of like depends on the situation. If it's really it's a good motto on this kind of situation, and then it's a bad motto on other kinds of situation. That's what I can say.
Yeah, I think one thing to add, especially like what you said about like you're in the state of flow when you're not trying. That's literally me when I'm working on an essay when it's due at 12 and I started at 7. So like I have to rush it, and then like it feels like it doesn't feel like you're writing for 4 hours straight, but however you're writing, like you're giving the all your heart to it.
Yeah.
And I and I also remembered like during like during grade 11 when I forgot to pass two papers in Miss Escalante's class, where I had to where I had to hustle for a 2,000 words, 2,000 words a 2,000 word essay. It's 1,000, 1,000, so it's two essays within the span of 2 hours. So like, it just kind of like it's like an it's a really great empathy that a great motto for us. Like sometimes we're so focused in the perfection that sometimes doing it is really good already. And then 80% of the hard work you do is technically showing up.
Yeah, it's like what you can see. It's like remember from our past classes and stuff. We have many classmates who try their hardest, try too hard, and then they would and in the end they would break down or burn out and on like then you could see others who just take a step back, relax, and not really think hard about it. They may not have the higher grade or the higher, but in the end you can see they're the one who's really taking the situation easier. They don't really mind about it, but there's also others who don't mind and they don't really do anything, and look at them, they and there's the result. It's as you can see, that's like there's the line of not trying hard, like of not trying. See, like if you don't try a bit, don't try too much, and if you don't really try it, there's like if you don't really try at all, then there's nothing you can accomplish. So it's like you can see it in school as well. You can see it in many aspects of life. If you don't try too much, then everything will be natural. But if you don't try at all, nothing will also happen.
Not trying is technically a not trying is also a choice.
Yeah, not trying is also
Not
a
trying and
choice.
doing nothing is a choice. So
Yeah.
one thing that remarks me really well in the Manson series on these books is that they're really like what what I can say. It's like they're really attention grabbing. It feels like a script straight from like a YouTube video because like each line is like each line there's like something a short joke, a, a fourth wall break in terms of him writing and him not caring about how he writes. I think it's like a really good emphasis that emphasis that each one of us has a borderline epidemic in terms of attention span, which I can truly relate during my classes because sometimes once the classes really get really boring, I tend to go to Facebook or to my social media feed and then just rely on the recordings of the meeting.
Yes, that's really relatable. I have this semester. I have a lot of 3 hour classes, and after the 1 hour mark, I really get bored and just secretly transfer to other sites like YouTube and watch something else. Cause like, it's really. I know it's bad, but then you can see that the attention span of people these days are not really long. Even before, I guess, like listening to something is really something straight that you're not really interested in is really taxing and tiring. Even the teacher in our class knows that talking for 3 hours straight was really something heavy, and our professors would tell us to we will have like 15-minute breaks here and there because it's too heavy. It's also taxing for the teachers. You would talk for 3 hours straight nonstop, and that's really tiring. And with the we're going back to the book, as you can see that he adds jokes or sarcastic remarks on what he says, makes it really enjoyable, and gives lets you go back to the lets it make you more attentive to the book itself and making it more enjoyable. Like after an hour you didn't know you already finished like 20-30 pages, and you're like, oh wait, it's an hour. Stuff like that.
Yeah, true. And then the book is really short. You think it's like 200 pages because it's kind of thick. But however, like the line spacing is, I think it's like around two. So you can technically read it in one day. In one setting, I mean.
Yeah, yeah, true. You think it? Yeah, that's like most a lot of books. There's also those books with the really, it's not thick, but with really small. How do you say? Just fonts that makes it more taxing than you think it is, even though it's small. But with the book, like Manson's, not giving series, or that word series. You really enjoy it because it's not as long as you think it is.
Agree or disagree? Do you think that you need to read both of the books to understand what his thesis on his thesis,
Uh,
subtle art, and also the everything is?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. I think I agree that you have to read both books to really understand the 2 points of him, his view on life, on itself, and his view on life and on self. But I don't. If you just really want a quick read, you can read the subtle art of not giving for yourself. It's already good enough for reading that. Is really good enough to know what you really want to do.
So what you mean is that con is like an icing to the cake, like some addition where it's like somewhat of an addition to the questionable questions that you have from the other book, because it seems like to be honest, like when I first read the title, it seems like it's a step backward on what he said on the first book.
Yeah, it's more. He's like it's more of like an anti-thesis. I guess I'm not really. It's like not. He's like in the beginning of the book. He's trying to argue, counter argue himself, but in the end, it also still connects to the subtle art.
Yeah, true. It's like it's like a tangent line to an equation. Hashtag
Yeah, very.
calculus.
Yeah, if you connect it to calculus, yeah.
Okay, so one thing that is remarkable on what he really puts out in the book is that no problem is a special problem, wherein you might think your problem is too big. There might be someone else who has the same problem with you. Have you encountered this in like in your real life when you realize that, damn, this problem is really hard, but when you take a step back, when you realize this problem is so tiny?
Yeah, I've encountered tons of times that problems that you think it would really put you down and stuff like that. Then when you take a step back, or once that problem is finished, and when you look at others, you're like, wait, I'm not alone. I'm not really the only one with this kind of problem. So why should I really feel down and stuff like that? It's like more of like you need to broaden your view. Stop thinking about yourself as well. You should also see others, that you're not really alone. And knowing that you're not alone really alleviates the thought of how, like, you think you're really down, but not really. Everyone else, it's just that bad. That's kind of bad. If everyone else is down, then it's a bit okay. It's just trying to tell you that it's really okay, and you can solve it, because if you can also see others with the same kind of problem and they solve it, then that would mean there's also a chance for you to solve that kind of problem as well.
Yeah, true. So like going back to Charles Bukosky, like one thing I really admire about him, he was a chronic alcoholic and gambler, where for him, according to him, that without this addiction, without this addiction, it will suddenly like loosen his art of creativity. There's like this certain like when you go to into this madness, you fall into this deep spiral of deep imagination and deep. creativity because there's like a problem facing you, and you're making it's like he's making his own problems to solve, to be creative.
So like, what like, so he's really addicted to drinking and stuff like that. I can say that drinking itself is not really bad because I think I heard that a famous author, a past famous author, wouldn't write a story unless he's drunk. So maybe like when he's drunk and stuff like that, he doesn't really stress about the problem and everything goes natural for him. But I'm not really sure about. It's like different, people, different people have different ways to solve their own problems, or like different to how they solve the problem is adding another problem that covers that old that other problem, solves the problem but creates another problem. I'm not really sure. I just respect him for he does the things he likes, and he solves it. He solves it by doing the things he likes despite creating another problem.
Is this gone, Ernest Hemingway?
I don't really remember the name of the author, but I think so.
Okay, so speaking of the madness that we always go into, uh I think like one thing I can really relate, like so like a mad like you go into the madness is like I can relate this to Kanye. No, jokes set aside, because like one thing about him is that once he goes like insane, that's where he touches his most creative side, especially with Ghost Town. Ghost,
I
Ghost
Yes,
Town,
yes.
yes, our favorite song, Ghost Town,
Yeah.
and Kids See Ghosts. That's where he really taps into his deep, dark emotions. Deep, dark emotion which puts emphasis in the art.
Yeah. The I can say madness and stuff really adds to creativity and creates like different views or different actually solutions. Like if you can say let's say like if you're gonna talk about meme culture, like people who are really dank and stuff. So if they try the weirdest things, but like those weird things actually work and are actually solutions. Like for example, our old okra noodle. We did it for the like for the for the meme, but then it actually worked. It actually helped people and stuff, and it's really really. You can say that if you add a little bit of madness, or if you dive into the madness, you can also see the creativity or like a different aspect that no one normally sees if they're too rational and stuff.
But it's also important to have a break also from time to time, and not only falling into that madness.
Oh
Because like
yeah.
what happened to us was like it was straight 3 weeks of non-ending torture of making Kuan noodles every.
Oh, oh god, that was rad. True, three. Like we wasted 1 week just to know how to make how to make the okra in the how to mix the okra in the noodle, and the next week to actually make it work, and then the next week we just had to make a lot of dough, roll it. Really, yeah. You have to also go back to the don't try too hard. I think it also goes with the madness. You don't go too mad, too mad as well. If you go too mad, then it's just basically insanity.
Yeah, true. And then we had to prep for like, I think it was 2 weeks, 2 weeks, right?
Yeah,
2 weeks of
2 weeks of
noodles. No, 1 week
raiding.
of okra noodles, then 1 week of normal consumption.
Yeah, raiding people's houses for to make the.
I shout out
Nobody.
to Robert.
Shout out to Robert wherever you are now. Also to Jacob. Shout out to Jacob.
And also to Kian, shout out. Also,
Yeah, Agbay and everyone, all our group mates. Tabi.
okay.
Uh, yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's what I think about. Like when there's always that thin line on when is it too much or when is it not too much. It's like where you just have to find your own line to everything, and in the end, you just really need to take care of yourself, or like you're. It's about really knowing yourself and knowing. It's always a constant struggle to know yourself. It's always a constant, never endless struggle to know what your limits are or when it's not enough.
Yeah, very true. Like sometimes we get really like overwhelmed with the with so much things that we set the bar very too high, that once we don't reach that bar, we'll feel disappointed with ourselves, especially disappointed with ourselves. So one thing I really recommend is humbling yourself down. There's nothing wrong about being humble. If you set your goal at least like 5% of the 100, 5% of that proposed crazy goal that you set, I think it is achievable. After that five, we can add another five, then another five, and then another five until you reach that 100%. Also, make sure that the time frame is smart, it's short, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and time bound. Shout no, no, no. That that acronym is really short. It really helps you. It really helps you attain on really great goals that you want to achieve. And then one
Yeah,
thing, don't don't just like go with the flow, because sometimes it's really hard to go with the flow. You need to really write things out, make sure you have a plan, and don't have a one plan, but have also a plan B. And then if your plan A fails, make sure you already have a plan C while working on plan B.
yeah, very, 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 very true. There's a lot of people who sets their standards too high. It's like it's like you go back to the story of Icarus who flew too high and he burns his own wings. So you could also put that you should take baby steps, like slowly but surely you reach to the point you want to reach. Because if you, it's like okay, you're climbing up a stair, then if the the height of the next step is too high for your legs to reach, then it's no point. So sometimes you just really need to take it really slow, and eventually you really reach to the point that you want to reach. So sometimes there's really people try to think about crazy dreams and stuff. And I'm not saying that having crazy dreams or stuff like that is really bad and all, but it's good because it motivates you to do something that's actually fruitful depending on the dream. But if it's actually no, you just really need to know yourself if you know that dream is actually really too high and or too low, because there's some others who just aims too low, and in the end they're not really improving. They're just, well, if they're not really improving, but they're just keeping it stable. But I have nothing against about being stable and stuff, because you know at one point we all want to have stability in any form, in any form of way. But if you're a person who just wants to keep on improving, then I would like to say that make it slowly but surely, with things that you can do, like make most of what you can do and what you have. Not It's like trying to tell a fish to walk. You can't make a fish walk. You should just tell the fish to swim deeper or swim faster,
Yeah,
something like that.
because if you like at least not try, but do your like somewhat just doing it. Don't try, but doing it, because if you add it up over like over a period of time, let's say a month. So a month. So let's say, let's give an example. So what if, let's say, exercise. So I
Yeah, yeah.
exercise like for example, exercise for a day for 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes too short. You say it's too short, but if you add it up in times it by 30, which is 30 days, you already have at least 2.5 hours of exercise and then within a month. And then
Yeah,
that, and then comparing it to not having exercise at all is a really great improvement. Okay, let's say again the five. What if like you add another five more, so you get 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That's already 100% up, which is 200 minutes or 3 hours of 3 hours of 3 plus hours of
yeah,
exercise. Sorry, my math's
yeah.
wrong.
Sure. 300, yeah, like 300 minutes. So you have like five
Five
hours of.
hours, 5 hours of exercise, and then like comparing that five 5 hours and not having 5 hours, that's a really big jump already from 0 to 500. And then like and then sometimes we get to over push and not overwhelmed but overconfident with ourselves because our ego's really high. So what if you say you do it like, okay, I'll do exercise, like I'll do it like I'll do this for one day. What happens on the next day? You get tired, then you don't
Yeah,
feel like it on the third day, on the fourth day you don't feel like it. So that's really like a big improvement. Small baby steps, but however, if you add it all over in a period of time, then there's a really big improvement.
yeah. And like speaking to exercise, there's this one YouTuber who talks about exercises and stuff. He gives forms of exercises that are really simple and are not really what you can say, like where the term for it is like where you really need to push yourself and do it. He even tells the people that these kinds of exercises may not be tiring, but it's not. He always goes back. It's not, exercise is not about the destination, but it's about the journey, what the things you learn from the journey. He also tells that exercises should not be painful because as you can say that most normally gyms are really want you to push and push, then in the next day you get muscle sores everywhere. So like if you think about it like that, muscle sores everywhere, then you can't exercise for the next 2 days. But if you keep it light and slowly make it harder and harder and harder, then you would also still eventually reach to the point of that kind of exercises that others do in the gym. But your in your journey, it's less taxing and less painful, even though if you take more time.
I forgot his name. I'm searching him up again.
uh Hybrid
Hy-
calisthenics.
Hybrid calisthenics. The good thing about him is that one is that he calls you friends, and it's really his all of his videos are really wholesome.
Yeah, very. Yeah, his videos are really, really wholesome, and he's not like that guy who tells you to push, push, and push. So it's like a nice change of pace to exercising on forming your, ideal body or what kind of like. He doesn't tell you, okay, you need 20 reps of this and you have to do it nonstop. He says, like, let's start with something simple and slowly go to the hard ones, because if you directly go to the hard ones, then you would just get tired and stuff. So he also tells like the importance of doing basics is also like it's like a good foundation on what to do, because mostly in workouts and stuff like that, or even in everything and anything, if you don't know the foundation, then if you're just gonna go directly doing it in a intermediate or a harder way, then you're gonna probably do one or two things wrong, and that would really make it would it would really make everything wrong instead if you do that one or two things wrong.
Yeah. And then like speaking about this guy being really wholesome, David Goggins.
No, 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 not yet. No.
Wait, I suggest reading his book first. Can't hurt me before like going deep to this guy. This guy is like a really bad. No, not like a really bad, but he's a really bad motherfucker. Because you know why? You know why this guy is so crazy? He's like a type of dude who runs 8 ultra marathons, which is 100 miles straight. And then usually ultra marathons really make like puts you down. And then the thing with this guy is that with David Goggins is that he really went like he was really down before he started. He didn't start like a prodigy like Khabib or Col- Khabib or Floyd Mayweather, but however he started from the bottom. Like he was like the first black African American black to be a SEAL. Basta I suggest reading his book before I'll go deep to it because I'll be joining his 48 by 4 by 4 this coming March 5, which is like a really crazy, which is a crazy, a crazy challenge because within a span of 48 hours, you must run 4 miles, 40 hour, 48 hours, which is 2 days. You'll be running 4 miles in 4 hours. So in every 4 hours, you must run like
At
so
least for
4
miles.
miles. And then this the thing about him is that again he started from the bottom. He didn't like started with a prodigy, and then his life was really ruined. And then he can compare it to hell. But however, he really puts to a point that you have to sacrifice today for having a sustainable and good future.
Yeah, surely. Yeah, there's also comes with sacrifice and hard work to things like that. It Just like people, not everyone really become starts as really good at everything they want to do. But if you work hard enough, then you would reach a certain point that would make you as good as those others. I would say that prodigies or geniuses are really only a term that's bounded with age. So like when you're young, you're like, let's say if you're young, then you're really good at something, then you would be called a genius or a prodigy. But if you also don't grow, then after a few years, other people would reach the same level as you. Then you would not be called a genius or prodigy again because you couldn't improve that. Like it's like let's say like you reach your peak at a very young level and you couldn't go higher again. Stuff like that. It's like
Yeah,
yeah.
and then sometimes like that turning point, like where you fail, is like the point that you makes you better. For example, let me get. I'm thinking of a guy who lost so bad that he really wanted on the second run. Okay, I think it's I have to I have to admit it's LeBron. Remember when he returned to Cleveland and then Golden State won and then Golden State won. It really wanted it he really wanted the championship more than ever. There's like a push or a drive to in that first loss. When you experience the first loss in your life, you'll say, "Oh man, this feels bad. This is not gonna happen on the second time." And then if you feel it on the second time, man, this is bad. I did it on the second time. On that second time, and your third time, I mean, you'll try your very best on doing the most that you can do to not feel what you felt on the previous times.
Yeah, very, very true. Let's say like losing makes you more hungry for winning. So like it just really gets you hungrier and hungrier to win. It makes you want to win more, and winning makes, and after winning it makes you really satisfied. As you can see with LeBron has this really hard grind and like hard vision on what he wants to play. He also has the talent. He knows he has the talent to win championships. But the thing with basketball is it's a team sport. So you also have to look at your teammates as well. Comparing it his opponents, like the Golden State. The Golden State in their time was really a very, very, very formidable team with having a very good. It's not. They're more not on an individual play, but they're more on team plays with very many threats in all sides. As to compared to LeBron, as you can see, mostly in LeBron's team, it's perceived as LeBron is just the center of offense, the center of everything. So if the team manages just to stop LeBron, then everything would just crumble. So and you, as to compared to now, LeBron's new team, it's you can see that LeBron is not really the only center point of offense or defense. You can see that it's the roles are more dispersed now, and LeBron really takes it more easy, and he wouldn't really be harassed at many points in the court. And, but then it still doesn't mean that LeBron still doesn't want to win. He still also works hard and trains hard for championships or playoffs.
Okay, sometimes, yeah, that's really well said. There's something like when you get older, you don't want to be the star anymore. But something there's like a path that I need to leave something. There's a must for me to leave something that may be like the second, not a second me, but a better version of myself, which I can see from my father that I don't want my son to be like me, but however better than me.
Yeah, that's very true. As like us all masters or things like that, or it's like saying that the master wants his apprentice or disciple to be better. Everyone wants to leave some kind of footprint or some kind of legacy in the world where they want to be remembered. And as for LeBron's point, he wants his legacy to be known as one of the best players in his century or in his era. That's like it really it also involves in many other things. As you can see, that many historic figures are put down in the books because of their legacy of what they left behind that made others also improve.
I have a question. So, to be a master, do you need a next master? And do you need to train the next master? Yes or no? And why?
For me, being a master doesn't necessarily no. I don't really think that you need to train another master to be a master, cause cause you really master the craft and everything else. You're still called a master in that sense. But if you're thinking about if you want to be a master and you want to leave a footprint, then you have to have apprentices and stuff. But that does not being amazingly good. Being a master of a craft is still called a master, even without the apprentice, even without having an apprentice or something.
Okay, so now can you give me your top three or top five reads
Uh, Top five reads in
books?
books.
Yes.
I would give my top three would be the subtle art of not giving. Uh, Everything is and the art of war. These three books really broaden your vision on yourself, on how the world works, and it also helps you learn what to do in terms of conflict. Those are really my top three reads.
Do you think Mark Manson's book is a must read for our generation, especially on how it was written, the way it was written?
Yes, yes, I think so. Our generation really needs to read this book to really learn about themselves or stuff like that. It's we have a lot. of people who try too hard, and that's why they fall down to depression and stuff like that. So reading the subtle art of not giving really helps people in that time. Even though that the book tells you is really not, the book's title is not what you make it seems to be. But many people fall down to depression and stuff like that because they mind too much about what others think of them. And by reading that book, you take a step back and you learn that you don't really need to care what others think who you are. And what's most important is thinking about yourself and doing things that you want to do that would not hurt you.
For your top four, I think I know what's your top four, but I'll send you David Goggins' book Can't Hurt Me. Send me. I'll just email me. I just message me your address lang. Okay.
Yes, sure.
Basta, it's a really good read, especially once you understand his psyche on how ruined his life. And I don't want to spoil any more on what happened or what will happen. So going on, going on. What is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of this madness that we are in?
So, like, the meaning of life is, if you think about it, it's always to the constant struggle of facing the void of nothingness, or like the void is like, so there's always gonna be that some part of the day or some part of your life in that year you feel empty. It's about that constant struggle of facing the void and learning not to blink by facing that void or running away. It's learning to accept there will be a part of that you'll be empty, and you need to just accept the fact that it's empty, but you have to know what to do to make it not empty. It's that's why we do stuffs like hobbies, and we try to find the meaning of life is really weird. The meaning of life is to do things that make you happy, or just things that make you feel like you have a purpose. Because if you don't have a purpose, then you would just face the void, and that's our constant struggle. It's like a constant struggle of, it's either to accept accept the void and jump in the void, or run away from the void, or just stare and fear at it and become empty.
So the meaning of life for you is to create meaning within the suffering.
Yes, yeah, it's really something like that. Despite despite the suffering, you need to have some the meaning to make it more manageable, or stuff like that.
Okay, thanks for having me here. I thank you, Kelvin, for being here. So
Yeah.
before we end, I would want to read a poem by Charles Bukosky entitled "Roll the Dice." Roll the Dice by Charles Bukosky. If you're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind. Go all the way. It could be it could mean not eating for 3 or 4 days. It could mean freezing on a park bench. It could mean jail. It could it could mean derision, mockery, isolation. Isolation is a gift, and all the others are a test of your endurance. How much you really want it, and you'll do it, despite rejection and the worst odds. And it will be better than anything else you can imagine. If you're going to try, go all the way. There is no other feeling than that. You'll be alone with the gods, and the nights will flame with fire. Do it, do it, do it. All the way, all the way. You will ride life straight to perfect laughter, and it's the only good fight there is. Thank you, Kelvin, for joining the Consortium podcast.
Thank you as well, Daphne, for inviting me.